I'd like to welcome everybody that came to City Council meeting tonight. It's going to be really exciting. Have an exciting agenda tonight. We'll go ahead and start off with roll call. We'll start with Dave Labram. Here. Dustin White.
Here.
David Baird.
Here.
Aaron Wade.
Here.
And Joe Burdett.
Here.
Okay. To get started, David Labram has offered to give us a prayer, and then if we could all stand and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're grateful to meet before Thee this night in behalf of the Roosevelt City Council and all of the citizens and all the employees and those of us that have been elected. We thank Thee for this privilege of living in this free land, in this one wonderful area of Thy vineyard, and for our Roosevelt city and community. We pray this evening that we might be kind and thoughtful, and all of us listen, and that we might speak truly, and that we can come to a consensus for the best things of our city and the citizens that reside therein, and all that we serve. We thank Thee for life itself and for America, and we pray for the leaders of this great nation, especially our Congress and our legislature and senators and representatives, that somehow they can humble themselves and be willing to do the right things and not be so separated by personal agendas and parties, that they could do the right thing for the American citizens. May we do the same here this night in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the minutes for the previous meeting? And if so, would entertain a motion to approve those minutes? Have a motion by Aaron Wade. Do you have a second?
Go ahead.
I'll second that.
Second by Dustin White. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. On our agenda, there's a little bit of a change. We have public comment period, and we'll discuss that a little later on tonight. We wanted to give the public an opportunity, if they had concerns but didn't get a chance to get on the agenda, they would have 3 minutes to comment. Also, if there was something that they wanted to visit with the council about but didn't necessarily need to have an appointment for that, they could come and just voice that concern as well. So are there any in the public that would like to comment? And we'd ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Also, when you comment, we'd ask that you come to the podium and state your name and a way to contact you, an address or something like that would be appropriate. And we'd love to hear a comment if you, anybody. If not, we have a scout group. Now it is customary, right, Mayor, that's what these are for here? For the scouts. So all the scouts that are visiting, those that are doing this for a merit badge, I imagine citizenship in the community, is that right?
And communication.
And communication, great. All those scouts that would like, if you want to come forward, there's a little flashlight that has been customary that we give to all the scouts. So if you want to come forward and do one of those. Thank you, sir. You're welcome.
Tell us who you are and
Oh,
what
yeah.
group you're with.
Who you are and what, that's good.
Ronald 965.
Say that? Say one. Brother Mockley, okay. And you are? Richard, nice to meet you.
Jody Swayze.
Jody?
Corner Edward. 752.
Corner?
752.
Connor. Good deal. See, if we embarrass you, then that'll be the last time you want to come to council. See, we're a little early. The first item, we do have Joe here, and with Western Chemical. Joe, are you ready to go ahead and present? Is that okay if we bump that up a little bit, since we have?
One item is a correction. They are in the city, so it says out of city, but they are in the city.
Oh,
So apologize.
gotcha.
I have that on my notes.
Yeah, I would make that correction
Good deal.
first.
If you're ready, we'd
Yeah.
be happy to hear you.
Oh, thanks. I'm Joe Arnold, Western Chemical, founded in 2009. Give you a little history of our company. We have about 20 employees. We're an oil field service company. We established in the Ballard side for about 5 years. In 2015, we moved right next to the airport on Pole Line Road, 2766 West, 2000 South. What we're asking for is a hookup for a 4-inch water hookup in Roosevelt City. Currently, we have Johnson Water. We're a service company that provides fresh water, chemically treated water, KCl, which is potassium chloride for downhole shells, swelling, different things that are being used in completion fluids, and also brine, which they use for killing wells if they're coming on strong, or for freeze control. So with the construction going by, we were annexed into Roosevelt City January 1st, 2016. It was part of the county. I think we were the last area, and we annexed, I believe, the new strata area that we all annexed as one big group in January of 2016. What we're proposing is, as the construction is going on for strata networks along that red line right there, that currently we have Johnson Water on the front side, and that services, we have some tanks that you maybe could see right there where the arrow's at, and again, we sell fresh water to fracs, and we sell brine, KCl, chemically treated water. As the construction is going, we felt like it was a good time to approach the city about a water tap, just being able to supply oil field, our company specifically, and then any of the companies that may be needing fresh water to to do their business. As oil field activity is ramping up, the price of oil is 65. We'd like to propose to get a water tap, a 4-inch water tap. I'm not sure the capabilities of that. I think maybe Ryan could give us what. Right now we are limited with the 2-inch tap on the Johnson side. It's sufficient for our needs, but if we could upsize our tap, we're not sure how much. This is just right now something we would like to get installed. How quickly it needs to happen, we're currently taking care of our customers with what we have on the front side of the Pole Line Road. But as this area develops and there's more activity, the increase for fresh water and those other products that I mentioned may increase as well. So the capabilities of the 4-inch tap, I'm not exactly sure what those would be as far as barrels per minute, gallons per minute, if we tried to draw on that.
That was one of the questions I had when I visited with Joe. I called him yesterday, I think, right?
Yeah.
And we spoke, and one of the things that I wanted to make sure is if we you know, down the future, we talked about some concerns. Obviously, it's in Johnson Water's district also. Even though it's in city limits, it still falls into that Johnson Water district. And so we're in negotiations with them right now. And so that's something that we have to navigate also. And so that's one question that I had for him is how quickly he needed it done, because where we're in negotiations with Johnson Water, I wanted to make sure that if we had an immediate need, we could look at that, but if not, hopefully we could get some things resolved there first. The other thing is if he has a 4-inch line, and that 4-inch line could potentially deliver 800 to 1,000 gallons a minute, can he get the flow? And is there enough water to be able to get that out of the 4-inch line, or you know, if it's less, would it be a 3-inch? So he's not overpaying, I guess, for what he could potentially receive. So that's,
Well, right now, the meter that's spec'd out for that's rated about 1,000 gallons a minute. For a 4-inch, you're pulling off a 10-inch, which we do have the flows and the pressures are good there, so that's not a concern. And Paul noted that too, that wasn't a concern for that. If 3-inch suffices you, I don't know what you're needing, or what kind of flow rate you're needing, but.
The more the better, but, you know, at times when they start filling a frac, you know, our bottleneck at times is the water. You know, and it just depends on how much storage, you know, you can put out there, but that, of course, takes capital. So if we have a 4-inch that can supply 25 barrel a minute, that's a pretty good rate. That would be sufficient. As long as, you know, again, if it doesn't stress the system as far as being able to flush toilets and things like that. That was the conversation we had with Johnson. You know, is we wanted a bigger tap with Johnson at that time as well, but based on maybe the limitations of their system, wasn't sure that was a good thing for all the other customers in the area at the time. So, and we understand that. We you know, we want to flush our toilets too. So.
well, that's one of the reasons I think we really want to be careful not to do something that would worsen the ability to create that contract with Johnson, because where there's areas that we can service and help them in certain areas, and there's certain areas they can help us, we definitely want to get that done, and that way the customer ultimately is we want to make sure that they're taken care of.
Yeah.
And so, are there any questions from the council? Yes, Dave?
Joe, do you store the fresh water when do you have tanks that you store, so you're running it and keeping?
Yes, we have automation on it to where we, you know, of course, try to limit the spill potential, those type of things, because it costs money, and then sometimes it doesn't look good. You know, we're a chemical company, environmentally it doesn't look good. So we have level controllers, we have auto controllers that turn on, and you know, and we've spent a fair amount of money on that type of automation, so that, you know, it kicks on when it needs to kick on, and we have to heat the tanks or put insulation on them and put on a recycle pump to keep things moving. We've had a nice winter, so we haven't had to need that as much this year, but you know, when we're trying to sell fresh water at 20 below, it becomes a big challenge. Well, you guys know that you have the watershed just down the road that you probably struggle with. So.
How many gallons do you store there? Is it
right now I've got of just fresh water, I've got 2 625 barrel tanks, so 50,000 gallons of fresh water, and then we have chemically treated that is also stored there, and that's at about 32,000 gallons of that. And then we have brine, and that's about the same, about 50,000 gallons, and KCL another 50,000 gallons. So.
As an observer, I compliment Western Chemical for making it through difficult times, and you've adjusted, and and it still is for most of us. I was happy to hear that you didn't need it immediately, and as a councilman, and I think a lot of us are concerned, we want to work relations with Johnson Water. I would like to maybe submit that we table this for a little bit and allow us some time with Johnson Water to work out what's the best right now and what we've done in the past and what we're going to do in the future, so we work more harmoniously together. And we're working on that path, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, we wanna be part of the solution.
And that's what I was thinking. So if Mayor, if I could make a motion maybe that we table this, I don't know exactly the time limit, but until we can have time to resolve some issues that we're working with Johnson Water on, so this doesn't add gas to the fire.
Yeah, the only reason, Danny, that we were trying is there's construction going on.
Yeah, and you wanted to,
For a cost benefit, you know, I've had my, Aaron was there, I've had half of my landscaping taken out because a Reaver Road wasn't planned perfectly, by previous councils, or whatever, and so we had, basically Reaver Road came right through the middle of landscaping I put out there. So during the construction phase, I would say this is the best time to make a decision. I don't have to tap into that at this time if there's still some issues with Johnson, but if it makes the most sense now, I would say it makes the most sense now to put it in the construction phase while you have heavy equipment out there. As long as, and if you guys are okay to table it, it may cost you more money. I don't want it to cost me more money.
So let me, first of all, let's do this. So do you want to, is that your motion to table?
well, I'll withdraw for more council on, you know.
I'd like to speak to that, and then I'll give you an opportunity, if that's okay. One of the things I did talk to Joe about, and that was just that, the construction end of it. And so one of the thoughts that I had is if we can allow some infrastructure to go in that would allow you to tie into that at a future date,
Yeah.
then I think that would be good. But my feeling is that a meter or the ability to sell water does not happen until we have an agreement with Johnson Water. And that's, is that,
That's,
I'm good with that. 2018
I don't want
may not even be in my budget right now that I'm gonna put tankage, because it takes hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that, to sell a commodity takes a long time to repay that. So
yeah.
I'm not sure that I'm gonna do that. I just wanna have the ability to do that later on.
it's wise planning.
Yeah, and I think it's wise planning. I think it can accommodate everyone here. Also, we have Dixon. Just one sec, Dixon. If you want it, Aaron, did you still have it?
Yeah, I'll just speak to the motion, Mike. You actually spoken really well to what I was gonna say. I would just speak to the motion that I think with the nature of where we are right now in our negotiations, and we wanna put resolution, you know, and solve problems, and you don't need it tomorrow. That was my suggestion. Well, let's put infrastructure in, ghost infrastructure basically.
Yeah.
Leave the meter out, so that we can capitalize on that now where it makes sense. But before we approve a connection, let's resolve our,
That doesn't hurt my
And
business
move
at all
forward from
right
there.
now, you know, to not make any action for 6 months a year. It really doesn't hurt where we're at today. Johnson's been able to provide what they need to at current, you know, production.
I would speak to his motion and second his motion, I guess.
Okay. Well, he withdrew, so.
I'd make the motion.
Okay, so you make the.
I'd make the motion that we would allow Western Chemical to put their infrastructure in, not sell the meter, and table the matter until we get a resolution to Johnson Water.
That's
Have a
second.
motion by Aaron Waite.
Second.
Can I add to that,
Oh, oh.
speak to that?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would like to put a time limit on that instead of forever. Agreement may not ever happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it will,
Yeah.
but we're talking
Yeah.
5, 10 years, who knows?
Yeah.
But just open-ended like that,
Well,
I think we should reserve the right to bring it back up for a vote in 2 years, a year, whatever. I just don't think it should be. I think it should be a reasonable amount of time. But my concern is servicing the Roosevelt businesses. That's my top priority. I do want an agreement with Johnson Water very badly, very badly. But given the past history, it couldn't be, it may not be to years from now. I don't know. I hope not. I hope it's 6 months from now.
Yeah. So, I don't know the exact, Steve could probably help me with this a little bit, but we have a motion to approve the infrastructure by Aaron Waite, and to table it until we have an agreement with Johnson Water to install a meter. And that was that seconded?
Yeah.
We also have another motion that was
Would be amendment.
an amended motion by Joe Burdick to have a time limit on that. As what would you like the time limit?
Joe, what would,
I think we can go, I think we should go a year. I mean, if you feel like you're close, January 23rd, whenever council meets in 2019, I think that's a fair thing. And again, if my activity ramps up, you know, I may call and see if we can look at it sooner than that. If it's not, then let's meet in a year and see where your negotiations are, and see where my needs are, and I think we can do that. Is that?
I think counseling in that, I'm trying to be optimistic, but I'd be very disappointed if we didn't have something done in 6 months or less, unless it gets too legal, but because there's a desire on both sides really to get, so that we can both be more productive and not be fighting against each other or have feelings. So I'd like to see it a shorter term, and I agree with Joel about putting a time limit on that, so.
I can accept the years, I can accept it into the motion.
Okay, so the motion in play is with the amendment.
So that would be a second to his amendment.
Second. Now,
You could take a vote on the second, the amendment.
but before we
Guys,
vote,
I think I'm confused.
yeah, this is the perfect one to run out for me.
And have a new motion.
All right. I think it's very clear, fairly clear what Joe's motion is.
I know what he did. Okay, I got that Dave made a motion, and then. he
I withdrew it.
comments to that,
Yeah.
and then he wanted,
He changed the motion to a timeline for
yeah.
1 year.
Who?
I made the
seconded-
motion.
I know, but who seconded your motion?
I did.
Dave Latham.
Okay. And then Joe Burdick made a motion to amend the time period, or to.
For 1 year, yeah. Which was seconded by
Amend.
Aaron Way. Now, while you're typing that, I'm going to make some comments for discussion. First of all, one of the things that was brought up by Johnson Water is the strata hookups as well. And I think if we're talking about time, now we can put a year on it, and that's great. I think that's good. But I would like to see us have this done before strata puts their meters in. I think that would show good faith to Johnson Water, and I think it's definitely something that we could do and shoot for. So that's just a thought out there. So are you ready for a vote, Carolyn? You got all that straight? I'm ready.
So, real quick,
Yes.
I'm gonna try to make this even more complicated, just real, if in fact the watershed, the Roosevelt City watershed that's just down the road, does that fall under Johnson Water jurisdiction? Let's just say that you guys still need to do negotiations that you need to do on the property in question. Would there be an opportunity to lease that from Roosevelt City? Would there be an opportunity to maybe use that water facility if in fact needed? Why the other negotiations are going on? Do you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
that's a good question. Let's go to the vote, and then we
Okay.
can have that for a different, we can separate that for a different decision. So, based on the motion made by, or amended and made by Joe Burdick.
You take and accept whether the vote to amend the motion is approved. So if the council approves that, then you'd go to the original motion that's amended.
Okay.
Otherwise, if his doesn't approve, then it goes back to just.
Right, so is there a vote to approve the amended motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Then the motion that's amended, you'll need to vote on it.
Okay, so,
Got a motion and a second.
you got a motion and second.
You just take on the amended, the motion as amended.
Motion is amended, and we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Good, that was a perfect one to start with.
That should help.
So as far as we want to address that tonight, or should we?
I can come back, I just put that in, you know.
I think that's a good thought. Should we leave that for a later, another meeting when we have time to think about that? Is that okay?
Because that's all part of like negotiations.
Right,
Yeah.
So anything that we,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's being fully utilized, but if I needed to, maybe there's a little bit of an answer. If
Yeah.
in fact, we can't get what we need from the current hookup we have with Johnson.
Yeah.
So,
If you'll give us some time on that, we can schedule in on the next meeting or whatever, but that'll give us time to,
yeah, we can go February or something.
okay. If you'll get with Carolyn,
Our next meeting would be February 6th, so February 6th would be our next.
Would that be soon enough? Should we give it a little bit
it's
more
probably
time
too
than that?
soon.
Yeah.
probably too soon, yeah. Should we go to the end of the month, February?
Is
Oh,
it
I don't
any
think
other-
it's gonna be pressing, is
Yeah.
it?
No.
I think if it became pressing, you could come in, but I personally feel like anything we do out there should be held until we get agreements settled, so
Okay.
that's my personal opinion.
We'll get with you when we get a little closer on that, but
Yeah.
that's good to know
We'll do
you're,
that. Thanks for your time.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Joe.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for being a great employer in the area.
Yeah.
Our next item, and now we're almost right on time, is golf course food service lease agreement. Ryan, would you go ahead?
Yeah, so we have had a food service out there for quite a while. The most recent one that we had last year, the last 2 years, was the Hideout. And their contract came to the end, and we bid it out, advertised it back out, and we received one proposal from Leslie and Jamie Brown. And we have reviewed their application or their proposal. They have previously done it when Darcy was the golf pro. They did it then, and we feel that this is a good option. We've talked with the golf pro. We've had the contract looked at with our attorney, and we would present this proposal and contract for the council approval. We think that this will be a good option. It's a smaller menu, not a big restaurant menu, but it will include just hamburgers, cheeseburgers, hot dogs, tacos, chicken strips, just a basic menu, and we think that they can provide that well for the golfers, and so that's what we would like to present for your approval.
Has everyone had a chance to look at that and any concerns with the lease agreement?
I'm grateful that you've talked with the golf pro and others and reviewed it financially. Under their recommendation, I feel good about that.
I looked over it too, and I thought it was a good contract. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Dustin White to approve the lease agreement. Second. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Dave Barrett gets in the game.
Welcome to the game.
All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion passes. We do have open public meeting training scheduled, but I'd like to, while everybody's here, there's some, if that's okay with you, Ryan, if you have some things to present, I'd like to do that while we have the public before we do a training. If they want to stick around for the training later, they're more than welcome, but I think this pertains more to what they might have interest in, so.
Yeah, that would be fine. I love the public to stick around for something interesting. It's great.
CIP capital
you.
improvement project, so we have that and the 800 South,
Yeah, I'll take the next
those
three
three,
if
so
you want me to.
do that.
Okay. So what we have is an application process for the CIB. What they do for these grants, we first of all have to get it on the planning reports, so 1 year and 2 to 5 year. So the 2 to 5 year is simply for planning purposes, but we can't apply for an application off of that list. So that's that's a list that we will keep, we'll add projects to, as things come up, we'll add projects. But the one-year list is those that we could apply for within the next year. And so just to kind of go through some of these, and I had my regular email, I can pull this up, but, so the projects we have on our list currently, I'll just read the projects we have and then the proposed changes. So we have the Cove Sewer Line, which we have already applied for, so we'll take that one off the list. The next one, currently it would read Northeast Sewer Line Replacement. This project is up in the northeast. At that point, there's three mid streets that are, the sewer line runs between the houses in their backyards, probably with an alleyway at some point, but the construction of those is, the fences and all that have covered that. But the sewer line is underneath those, and there's three of those that stretch from 600 east to 400 east, so it's 2 blocks wide, and there's three of them. So this would approximately cost us $750,000.
Ryan, may I ask a question on that? Is there a right-of-way showing an alleyway through there, or is it just a right-of-way for the sewer, or?
I think there's a right-of-way for the sewer. I don't know whether the alleyway was abandoned or not. We need to go back and
make
get
sure on
plats
that
when
part.
Before we would start construction on that project, we'd have plats. What we've done at this point is, one, we'd like to take northeast off so that it's generic on the sewer line. So if there are other sewer line replacements we need to add, we can do so. So that this is kind of more broad. We also have asked Jones of the Mill to go back and look at it and say, okay, what would be the best method? We have these, although we may have the right of way, and we'll get into that once we determine, once this works up to priority number 1, we would go through right of ways before our application goes. But at that point, we're asking them to say, okay, go back and look to see where our options are. Is it bursting? Is it open trench? What other options? It's been on the list, it's been an issue for a while. Let's go back and see if there's any improvements in possibilities. The two problems is it's undersized and it has some bellies. And so at that point, then because it's undersized, we don't have a camera that we can camera it. So there is some issues. So we'd want to upsize the line and then take out the bellies so that it would flow better. At this point, we're fortunate that we haven't had a lot of sewer backups at those particular spots, so it's not something that is creating an imminent need, but we are saying that is something we want to address.
Just real quick on that, I know we've had that on the projection list for a number of years. We looked at a few different methodologies on replacing that at one time, so if I'm hearing you correctly, this is for a complete redesign, rebuild of that line through there, so it's not a refurbish with we looked at a different augmentation.
So there's a few different ones. You can send something down that will coat the line, but then it shrinks the line. So because it's already undersized, shrinking the line is not going to be helpful.
You comfortable with those costs, I guess, is my
Yeah,
question.
so I'm comfortable at this point. The ballpark cost is $750,000. That's the ballpark. And when we go to these funding, if we go in with $1 million or something different as we get closer with better engineering work, then that's not as big of a deal for the CIB as much as it is making sure it's on the list and that it's an approximate. They understand that these are approximate numbers. As we get closer, the actual application can vary. So, for instance, on our sewer one that we just crossed off, it was a $5 million application. We actually went into with 5 million, and that wasn't the issue. It was that it was on the list. But to finish up, the other ones are on there. Master plans and 800 South, which we would rename as the Utility Improvement and Reconstruction Project, because we'd like to add a few more things than simply just 8 South on that application. And then we have Roosevelt Master Plans. So we had an airport master plan and master plans separated. We'll combine those together and add what master plans we need. We don't need as big of a airport master plan as we had thought previously, so we can phase that down and put master plans including trails and park and rec, and some of those other things possibly inside of this application. But the recommended priority list would be 800 South, which would then be called our utility improvement and reconstruction project. That we would recommend being priority number 1. We already have funding for curb gutter and sidewalk. We already have funding for water line improvement and storm drain line. So we already have funding for those from different funding agencies, and this is from State Street to 5th East that we're talking about. We'd need asphalt and sewer line, which we don't have funding for yet. So that's what the core of this project would be.
So the other concern I would have is, or question I would have is, have we considered lighting in that project?
So we haven't considered lighting on that project, but it could be. Generally what happens with lighting, it gets put in as developers put in. There is some of that stretch on the north side, the Poco Acres section, that still hasn't been developed. And there is some that is the Brockbank property there in the corner on coming off the 50s. We would require them to put in lighting when they develop those pieces. So we could have lighting put in at the developer's expense when those happen. But the other piece from Second to State, we could look at lighting if there's not. I think there's one. I think there's a light on State and 8 that I'd have to look again. But we could look at those kind of things and add poles. That's usually not a big one that we can.
It seems like at a minimum we could maybe put in the infrastructure while the road's being constructed rather than putting it in later.
Yeah,
That's what I was
oftentimes
wondering.
the infrastructure for those will go in the right of way that's outside of the street and sidewalk.
Okay.
And so they put it in that right of way. Sometimes it's a mow strip if the curb is separate from the concrete, from the sidewalk, or we usually have 3 to 4 feet after the sidewalk that we would put that kind of infrastructure in. So there would be place, instead of putting it under the road, under the sidewalk.
Okay.
So there is ways to do that. But we could install some of those. We have overhead power lines, and so some of it might be able to come off of that as well.
Okay.
So it would be an overhead power line in that area.
Okay.
But that would be priority number 1. Number 2 is master plans, and number 3 would be the northeast, and we would list those as the 3 priorities. And we would also move 2 projects from our 2 to 5 year list. The automating utility read equipment and the airport runway. So the runway has been out a ways, and at this point the FAA is currently funding the engineering work this year and the construction next year. So if we put it on the 1 year list, we could potentially take it in February and apply for funding through CIB. If CIB would give us funding, we could either cover our match with a 10% match, or we could extend and add the taxiway. Because FAA has taken off the taxiway, said, no, we're not ready to do that. That would be one. And Vernal did take their airport to CIB and matched with the FAA money. So it's something that Vernal did, so we could potentially do the same thing. So we're adding it to our list, but we'd move it. Now it's time frame wise, we'd move it to the 1 year, but it'd be on the bottom of the 1 year priority list. If that makes sense. And then the automated reading, we have just installed a tower system to be able to read meters. 1/3 of our culinary meters can be read that way. But I think 2/3 of our secondary meters can be read that way through the tower. So we'll be able to read through this tower. We'll be able to read those meters that are capable, the radios that are capable, every 4 hours rather than once a month. some of the things that does for us is we can get leak detection. So if the water spikes, we can identify and send a notice out that says, hey, you may have a leak. One other thing that we could do with the tower one, if we get this grant and upgrade some of this, we could get pressure. We could read pressures at different spots. We could insert pressure and then be able to read it again every 4-hour reading. We could have it up to 4-hour or a manual push. If we said, hey, I want to know it now, we could send out the signal and have it come back. Otherwise, it'll just automatically feed to us every 4 hours. We could have the water temperatures and a few other things that could really upgrade our system to the next level. Be able to help us identify any water losses. When a leak occurs or a main line breaks, we would know where the pressure drops, so we could identify where we would address that, and we could watch what happens. With the complexity of our system, adding Victory on, it'd be nice for us to be able to know when we turn, what does the pressure do? At this point, we have to manually go out and test houses and see what pressure's changed, and so this is very labor intensive. This would take some of that off so that we could improve our system and do more things. At this point, we have a small department, but we could do more things with better technology.
Just a quick question on what are the limitations on the tower? What's the distance on that? And would we be looking at putting in another tower down the road, or?
There is a potential of another tower down the road. At this point, this tower is on the Art Hill. It is on Stratus Tower up there, and we put on the top of it. But we could have a need for another tower, maybe in the Cove at some point, or a relay in the Cove. This has been designed, and we've had a model designed that this would cover 90% of our system. So at this point, this one tower covers 90%. They would like us to put another one for redundancy. Because of the cost of this tower, we haven't gone to that redundancy yet. But as we build the system out, we would work on redundancy.
I just want to make sure if we invest in a lot of meters, especially south of town that are a little further away, to make sure that we get the benefit, make sure that we also have the infrastructure that the tower.
Right, and the next one, we'd build another tower or a relay. We could add a relay on top of the water fuel station out to the industrial park. That's a potential to move there. It's really over the hill. This potential not being able to read. It's up, I think it's up 90 feet, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's up 90 feet, and it's going to see a lot of the area. It's going to see most of it. So at that point, that's what our next one would be, that we would add to our 1-year list. I'll look real quick. That would have been $500,000 is what we expect on that project. Anyway, other things that we have on our 2 to 5 year list is storm drain improvements, street reconstruction, bike path, 2 million gallon tank. With the 2 million gallon tank, we're trying to work with Cedar View Montwell because they will need a tank and storage up in the north part of the area, and that's where we need ours. And if we could have a joint application, that could move that up, but we'd want that maybe to come from them. They would have a better MAGI number to justify a bigger grant. So, and then sewer improvements. And then we would remove the replace well. We would have had that on, but with the Victory line, we won't need to necessarily go to replace the well. So we take that back off the list. So, any questions on?
These have to be submitted by?
They have to be submitted by February 1st, I believe. So we need to make sure that you're okay with us moving forward on them at this point.
And I guess that's the question. Is everybody in agreement with the list that's been presented?
Just speak to it for a minute, Mayor. I'm just very happy to see our city leadership leading forward on these things. I don't know if people know how much money Roosevelt City's actually received in grants and CIB in the past few years, but it's very impressive. and it's been at the hand of their leadership and foresight in pushing some of these things forward, so I'm appreciative of the good work that's going there and 100% in favor of moving forward on these.
And being an observer for the last few years watching, and I really compliment the previous administration and the city employees for how you've gathered and organized and prioritized and followed up on the accountability that's been on these. So this is great. This is great.
Do we need a motion to move forward with that? Let's do
Generally,
it.
it's kind of been administrative, we've proceeded on these, but if you'd like to have a motion, we'd love to have
We're all in
the
agreement.
confidence that you are in agreement with us. But at the time frame, we said, hey, we'll show what we're doing, and we like you to know where we're at and what we're doing, and, so it's more informational than it is
Should
anything
we-
else. But
These
if you want a
project,
motion, we're great.
these projects were already approved to be on this list by motion, correct? And we're
So
moving
at this
forward.
point,
There were some
previously,
changes.
Motions
Yeah.
haven't created these lists. So these lists haven't come by creation, they've come by,
Work meeting.
prioritization
Yeah.
of staff. And so if you want them created and defined in resolution or defined in motion, then we can do that. But previously, it's been kind of just administration and staff that updates it.
Might be a good thing though to have a record of the city council
I
that
agree.
we really, that it's written, and if other people, look, I'd make the motion that we do formally recognize, whatever the proper verbiage would be for this, that we approve it and heartily support it. That's,
I have a motion by Dave Latham. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Aaron Waite. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you.
All right, with that, I would move on to the next two items. It took a while on that one, I apologize. For the next two items, CIB 800 South, that is, we have the grant prepared and ready to go. I was hopeful that you would agree that that was number one. We've drafted it, that will be submitted, but the application will need to be submitted by February 1st. So we've drafted it, ready, and we'll meet with, if you're willing to let us proceed, we'll meet with you back tomorrow to make sure their comments are approved, and we'll proceed with the progress. So that's kind of the time frame. This meeting hit just right. So if you're okay for us to move forward on this project, this one does include a little chip seal in different parts of town. That's why we're hoping to have a little bit broader in a description, so that we can throw in a few more things. Not quite the kitchen sink, but we'd like to throw in a few extra pieces while we have some good match money showing for different funding areas. It helps. So anyway, hopefully you're okay with that. If you are, we'll proceed.
Well, let's find out. We'll just motion and approve until we realize that that's not the way. Do we have a motion to move forward on that, the 800 South project?
So moved, Mayor.
I'll second it.
Motion by Aaron Waite, second by Dustin White. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Perfect. And the next one is the Joint Highway Commission. This is a grant application. Currently, we have only one street in Roosevelt that can qualify for this funding, and that is State Street. We are just finishing State Street from 8 South to 1800 South. We'll put the drain line in there. You've probably seen that construction. We've talked about it before. But we can only apply after one project goes off. So we're having one project go off. So this is our first chance to put another project on. Another piece. We would like to say, okay, let's put from 8 South to 3rd South, and that's what this project is. It would widen it, straighten it out, and put a sidewalk on the west side so that we can have a sidewalk all the way from 200 North all the way to 1800. So we'll have it all the way from Highway 121 all the way down to 1800. We would connect in sidewalks. So this is a piece that's missing for that. Also, if you've been past Maverick, you see where the road is wide, then narrows back in and jogs in. This would balance that out, finish it off, really finish off that piece. It will take 3 to 4 years, maybe 5, for the funding cycle to come up for that one. So it's a long process to get the money, so we don't want our highest priority one, we don't wanna take 800 South there because it will take us years to get this money, but we would put this one on. And then we have applied and we're hoping to get accepted in the process, but it's been 9 months, maybe a year ago that we made application to have other roads included. For instance, Lagoon Street, from 1500 to 1000 West, 1500 East to 1000 West. 800 South, we've applied to take it from Highway 40 to 1500 to add to the list. We've also proposed to add 400 East from the Highway North, 600 East from the Highway North. We've kind of gathered any of the major arterial and tried to get them so that UDOT would fund those type of ones, so that we'd have more options the next time we come to this. But at this point, this is really the option, and it's $1.5 million. The last time the applications were submitted, there weren't enough applications as there was money, so this would be a great one for us to go with. We are fortunate, the council should know, we are fortunate to have a member on the subcommittee that first reviews this. So John Zillis sits on the subcommittee and was appointed to that by UDOT. Less important, I sit on the Joint Highway Commission, who was appointed by UDOT to sit on the main committee, but he sits on the subcommittee to first review this, and this would be where this application would first sit for approval. And we're fortunate to have from us, both of us, and there are only one from rural area in Region 3. So I would be so he and I are the only ones in our respective committees that sit in rural area from Region 3, which includes from Provo, Vernal, so it includes all of that on the city side. There's one represents the county, one represents cities, and so this is a pretty good committee for us. But at that point, this would be the next one, and the pot has been there. If we had an application, we probably could have got it on last year, except we had a project on the list. And so we're really excited about this opportunity. It's $1.5 million, and it's 90% grant. So, you know, we'd like to see that project move forward. So I understand it's not next year's project, but it is a project that would really help the families.
I think it's a great project, great match funding for that. I think it would be silly not to take advantage, but appreciate all your hard work on that.
Good. So that's another $1.5 million we could get, but
Yeah, should we go for a motion to approve that application? Fund that project.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Do that.
The motion by Joe Burdick and second by David Baird. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
I just make a comment too. It's so influential to have somebody from our city on these committees that can help guide and direct. We all learned that if you have somebody's ear and somebody's influence, it's wonderful. I'm appreciative that they would both serve on these things and help benefit the city. It's great. It's amazing, really.
Thank you. Really quickly, Cindy, you're here. Are you here for what I think you're here for? Okay.
Are we not doing that?
Well, we can. Mayor, I've been a little bit, I don't know exactly how the Housing Authority works as far as the appointments there, but we have chosen and asked somebody to serve in that capacity. And does that need to come before council, or is that something we can do?
I don't think we've gone before council in the past 4 years. I don't know on that one. I don't think we have, but
I think it was acknowledged, not really voted on, but it was acknowledged when I went on. It was like made in the public, but I don't think we voted on it.
Been the last one we would have done. at that point, most things that the mayor appoints is the, appointment with the advice and consent of the council.
Right.
But this one's kind of one that, I don't know that that's been the way that
That's what I was
happened,
thinking.
has it?
Kind of. There's never been a motion or a vote. The mayor just said, this is who I am appointing. Does any of the city council members have issues or problems or concerns? And if there was none, then the mayor just appointed.
So, sounds like advice that we could add it to the next council's agenda if you'd like.
Okay. Should we do that? I wasn't sure, and I hadn't added it in time, and I got a phone call from Cindy, asking, and I said, yes, we should do that, but I didn't know the exact process of how that's been taken care of.
I would like, even though she won't be appointed or he, by our next board meeting, which is next Wednesday,
Mhm.
if the individual you're looking at, I would kind of like to have
Could
a
attend.
hand, just as a public member,
Okay.
not as a board member, just to
Sure.
Especially where the meetings are only every 2 months.
every
or
other
so.
month.
Yeah,
So at that
let's plan
point,
on that.
Which, okay, and
Yep.
then if you could just call me tomorrow or something, give me
Absolutely.
your contact information.
Yep, we'll do that.
Start getting information
Who do
out.
we have here
Uh,
considered for that?
Rebecca Pittman. Thought she would be a good candidate, and she accepted, and she'd be happy to help, so.
somebody active and wants to be involved.
I thought that would be good.
Okay, we'll add it on, and on the agenda, we generally put person's name, I think, so.
We'll get it ratified next time, but we'll make sure she's there at the next one to see how the
Yeah.
proceedings work.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you.
Really quickly, has everybody, let's go ahead and go to the resolution, 2018-284, Council Rules of Order and Procedure, and also the council reassignment. Let's do that. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the council assignments, and are there any questions or concerns with those, or?
I haven't looked at them, Mayor,
Okay.
but I probably won't have any questions.
I
or
don't think
concerns
you-
if I have, yeah.
I don't think you changed. I think you stayed basically the same. Yeah. So,
I can let you use my list.
It'd be nice to have a printout. I know that's always electronically available, but some of us aren't
It's in
always.
here somewhere.
I did look at it.
One thing too, I've had several, there's a class at the junior high that goes over government, and they asked me for a list at one time, and I gathered what I could. So if that list can be somewhere electronically available, then when somebody asks us who does this or who does
Yeah.
that, we don't have to scratch an email and wonder.
that would be perfect. In fact,
This is if I can zoom in.
yeah, one of the thoughts that I had, and I tried when I did it, one of my things when I tried to organize it was making sure everybody was aware of the meeting times and dates and everything else. So if you have any information as far as updating that, I'd be happy to do that. The other thing I thought is, along with what you're saying, is to put it in a Google Drive document so that anybody could access it. We could give permissions for everyone to access it online that way, and then if you needed it, you could just print it off. And then if you had suggestions on when meeting changes would be, you could make a suggestion on that Google Drive, and then that could be done and taken care of. Would that be good, or would it be better in a? That's a pretty accessible database, Google Drive,
Yeah,
and
I
we could show
have-
everyone how to.
I have
Access
a Dropbox that we use for other pieces, and we can do it that way too, if you
We can
want,
do
like
both.
this.
It's easy to do
Sure.
both. I do Google Drive, and if people do Dropbox, we can do both, and have it there available.
However you want.
It's pretty confidential. I mean, it's
So-
pretty. No. But I tried to make sure that I felt people that had some desires to serve in certain areas got those, and to be honest, there were certain organizations that requested a few of you, and so I thought that would be good. They felt like they could work well with you there. So, if I don't know that we need to make a motion to approve that, but if we do, we can do that.
I don't know, there's been a motion.
We
We
also
just-
have on the agenda, the this evening too, to, visit about that. Would you like to visit about that now, and big picture, moving forward with assignments and how those look? Or should we visit about it later?
Yeah, I just thought we could get this out of the way now, and then I would like to address that fairly quickly in the future, is the big picture. Some of these things would be changed. Aaron and I went and visited about this a little bit, and as our focus and what we want to accomplish becomes more clear, there's ways that we can organize ourselves differently to be a little more effective or efficient, I believe. And so some of these things may change down the road, and probably not too shortly down the road, but for now, just to keep us running and going, I thought that this was something we could throw out there and
Sounds good.
but that's a good point. We should probably get that on the agenda, at least within the next couple meetings. So,
But
that
we'll
we
put
have.
that on our next work agenda, end of February.
yeah,
Give us enough
that's a
time.
good idea.
What would you like it called so that it can be clear for the
Just saying council, not reassignments, but council assignments and I guess that's probably adequate.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Council assignment discussion.
Yeah, have that discussion on the resolution 2018-284. Has everyone had a chance to look at that? As we were looking and I was campaigning, there were some things that people would like to see, and one of those things was the comment period at the beginning of the meeting. And so I've had discussions with some of the councilmen and with the city manager and city recorder on how that could happen and what would be best. We looked at different cities. First of all, we did have in our resolution to allow for that, but there wasn't a lot of specifics. It said we may do it, and then we may limit the time. But what I felt is if it says we may limit the time, some people may feel like we cut them off, and then some people may feel like they got more than others. And so I thought, well, we'll just put a set time so that there's not any controversy, and we put that at 15 minutes, and we also put that at 3-minute intervals. So whoever would like to speak could speak for 3 minutes, and then we'd allow that time to go on up to 15 minutes. Go ahead.
Is there any verbiage that would basically allow us to, or do we need to have verbiage in there that says that we can go longer than that 15 minutes?
Well, I think we probably, out of respect for everyone's time and just so that it's consistent, 15 minutes. If there is something that needs to come up, I think we can have it on the agenda for the next meeting, or can it be addressed outside of the meeting? But I think, what do you guys feel? I think it ought to be kind of a...
Well, that only allows 5 people to speak, and there could be like, if they spoke
In
for
all
all 3
reality,
minutes.
this isn't today. It's a new
It's
thing,
not.
but nobody
Yeah.
want to speak. But
Yeah.
I doubt that's going to be at every meeting thing.
Yeah, I think what we can do is let's try it for the
Yeah.
15 minute.
Okay.
If it comes to the point, resolutions are fairly easy to approve and change. If it comes to the point we feel like we need to change that, or if we're getting more participation, then we can look at it down the future. But for now, I think it's a good starting point.
I think as the mayor, you'll feel the pulse, and you
Mhm.
might want to, you could do, you'll have that, and as a council, we can sometimes too, but I like that it's up there. I know we did that early, some, and we ended up moving it because you gotta leave that open time open, and we were not being, it just wasn't utilized hardly at all, so. People usually utilize it when there's a,
Big issue.
Public hearing.
Yeah.
or just some, comment, but it's great to have citizens know that they can speak.
Yeah. The good thing about it too is I visited with Ryan and Carolyn about this quite a bit, and we've had times on our agendas, so it feels really rigid. So if we don't have somebody speak, then it kind of throws us off with meeting the other times of the agenda. So one of the things we've talked about, and looking in the ULPC, UCLP manual and those kind of things, we don't necessarily have to have times on our agendas for certain things. Public hearings we do, but other things we don't necessarily. And so we've kind of discussed how we could arrange the agenda to accommodate that comment period, but then move on to other subjects if nobody's here, without feeling like we're going out of order and those types of things. So one of the things I wanted to bring up also, and this will be posted for people, is says speakers should not expect any debate with the mayor, city council, or city staff. So they're not coming to debate and it's a question answer. It may be just to voice a concern, and then we can, you know, once everybody's had a chance to speak, we can address one concern if we want. We may, but for the most part, I think it's more just a hearing period to hear their concerns, and then if it's a big enough concern, they can get on the council agenda the next time or something like that. So I don't want it to turn into a 15 minutes turn into 45 minutes because of you know, we're exchanging, you know,
Rebuttaling everything.
yeah, exactly.
One of those items to Jared's point is that sometimes it will be the same issue, and maybe asking it at first if there's a particular person, if there's one particular issue that multiple want to talk with, either try to help split that time, or to have one spokesman for that group of issues. So it kind of helps that, keeps those together. That might help. And if there's a lot that want to speak on the same one, you really want to make that an agenda item. So
Yeah, that sounds like an agenda item.
Well, and that's just it. I know the county does really well at that too. They'll say, you know, if somebody has said what you wanted to say, please, you know, don't come up and say the same thing. And I think with the little, you know, how we interact with the public, I think we can avoid some of those pitfalls of
And I think
taking.
you'll gauge that if you have a large audience, you may say that. If you have a small audience,
Yeah.
you might.
But I think it's a great thing, and for our council. The other thing that is in the resolution that I wanted to point out is I want to help the staff be able to have cutoff times so that they're not feeling overwhelmed last minute trying to throw things on the agenda, and then we're not getting information that's just, you know, a day before, a couple days before. So one of the things that is in there is the cutoff period being 8 days prior to the meeting. So no agenda item can be added to the agenda 8 days prior to the meeting, and then the packet or the material will be distributed to the council and no later than 7 days prior to the meeting. That gives us plenty of time to focus on that material, read it, research it, and do whatever we need to be properly educated on those things when we come to council. One of the things mentioned is maybe a little application form when somebody puts something on the agenda, that they have to provide, you know, any information so that the staff isn't scrambling trying to come up with that. Yeah, exactly. Kind of also, so are there any other questions? Those are the main changes. But any questions, concerns, or on that resolution?
Based off of a discussion you and me had with Ryan yesterday, it sounded like we've got 8 calendar days, and then at 7 calendar days it's going to get distributed to the council. Did we want to give them more time to?
That's what the application is for. In other words, they won't be put on the agenda unless they have.
Yeah.
Okay.
I came in and I talked with Carolyn about that, and I guess Carolyn and
Okay.
Ryan had a discussion,
Okay.
and we talked about ways that
So
we can.
We'll try that for the day.
Yeah.
For that, we'll work on
Okay.
that. But, you know, as far as that goes, if it takes a second day
Yeah.
at some point,
Okay.
we may have to take that, but we'll try to work at that and see. I think as things progress, and if we have to do a lot of research and a lot of putting together before, then it may take us more time.
Well, and the good thing is where we're having council meetings twice a month, if it's a lot of research, maybe we just postpone that one, and if we can't make the deadline, we just make it for the next meeting.
Maybe I'd add some clarification to the resolution we have. Instead of having 7, let's have 5. Just because 5, I think, will still give us plenty of time to look at them, but it gives them a little bit of time to adjust that. If, let's say they have something comes in and they do need to do a little bit of time. Very sensitive to that with putting a lot of big agendas together. Comes out big job sometimes. Just giving them a couple extra days to put information together to get to us.
My suggestion, and I don't totally disagree, my suggestion would be then to give them more time prior to, I think.
I'd be fine with putting it at 12 days and giving it 8. I wouldn't matter,
Yeah, right.
let's just create some gap.
I think what I feel is that, let's try this knowing that it may need to be adjusted.
Yeah, and a lot of it is to help them, and so if you're okay with it, I think, I mean,
I am willing to try it.
You're doing most of the work, so.
Yeah.
No, I
Take your
Yeah.
recommendation.
I wouldn't be doing the research, I just put it in, but as far as from the public, that's gonna be easy.
Yeah.
If there's an issue that needs research that has nothing to do with the public, those are the items that might take a little more time.
right, and then some of those we may have to,
In the thought of it's 5 days, I mean, we're gonna have a goal for 7, if it's 5. You know,
Well,
then it's flexible, what our goal would be to match the intent
yeah,
of that, so.
if it was 5 business days, my problem is if it's,
It's a weekend or something.
yeah,
that's why.
and people don't like to be called on weekends, you don't wanna interrupt, and that, Sundays and those types of things, that's why it was 7, is because give us 5 business days, if it was 5 business days, we could change that. And if it's more time before, I think that's okay, but, for me, just doing that.
I'm supportive of the way it is. I think if it needs adjusted, let's adjust it back. I like that idea. Let's adjust it into that. It's 12 or 15 days before
Right.
the next meeting,
I like that.
and then we stick it out at 10 or 8. That'd be fine.
Okay.
All for a fan of getting that information to us, so we have time to look at it and review it. It's a great thought.
I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion from Mayor Anway to approve resolution 2018-284, and second by Dustin White. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we'll back up and we'll give Carolyn the floor. Carolyn?
Is that what I'm trying to finish?
We might take I think it'll take 10 to 15 minutes.
You wanna do the council review?
If you
Title
wanna go
15?
through
Let's
that
do
one.
that. Yep.
Because the training, will take 40 minutes.
Let's do it.
And then anybody, the rest, that gives anybody that wants to leave before the training can, and if they want to stay. I know that, I've had, Randy here, who does business licenses, has some questions there, we've got him as well.
Perfect.
But if you're all right with that, I'd like to just go through a few. Put them up here. I assume, the link was sent out with the agenda, I assume you've at least had some time to maybe digest a few of it. My thought, and what we talked with JR about, or with Mayor about, was that maybe I'd just take the first 15 pages and kind of give you an overview of what my recommendations kind of would be, and not go into some great depth on some of them unless you have that, but kind of give a model of how things may work, and then get opinions on how you want things presented, brought forward, how do you want to talk about it. So this section is kind of an interesting one because there's a lot of this title that is just duplicate of what the state code says, and so from a administrative and an enforcement mechanism, our enforcement mechanism is basing their enforcement on state code. So anytime you have just a reiteration of state code, we're just enforcing state code anyway. One thing that's happened with this is some of the pieces of it don't match what the state code says anymore. Some of these things were approved 10 years, 20 years ago, and the state code has changed. But I just go through a few of the pieces here. So, business licenses. This is the page 2 under licensing. So 550440 says that the licenses shall be made in writing to the city treasurer or designatee. We would strike in writing. We'd recommend striking in writing. We take it by electronic means. So at that point, we take it electronically. So a small one, but for instance, that code hasn't been updated since 2000. So it's 17, 18 years old. The other thing in it, an appeal or a change to the application, at this point, we have changed all of our changes to 14 days instead of 10 throughout the code, and this one happened to be missed, so we changed that from 10 days to 14. And then in order to change things, and this is just making an application change, we're saying let the change go back to the treasurer where it started, and let the treasurer change that so it can go back through. At this point it would say mayor, and that's one thing that has the differences. It still has any appeals coming back to the council. It just says that treasurer, that's where the application starts. Changes should be made there, and then if there's an appeal to it, it would be brought to council under the appeals section. And so that kind of just keeps them so that they can deal with the same path if they have a change. And application fees, just kind of removing the his or her and just saying their, in this day and age, in sometimes businesses don't have a gender, so when we're talking about the business application, it's not a he or she, it's not a, so that would be a small change there. Capitalizing state, small change, we don't have it capitalized. And then the appeal, capitalizing city council, and changing again to 14 days rather than the 10, which is
Quick question, I don't know if this is just an old copy, but you've changed the number, numeric 10 to 14, but the written 10 before the parentheses.
yeah, would need to be changed as well.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, just wanted to make sure that got
Yeah.
changed as well.
No, that would need to be changed as well.
Okay.
So, yep. And then the last one there on D, it says these are the things that the certificate would contain. Oh, I'm moving the mouse so it fits that. Yeah. These are the things that it contains. At this point, it doesn't actually contain the commencement date, so we would strike the commencement, leave the expiration date. It does include the expiration, but commencement of it, we don't. If you have one, it's been commenced, you have a license, but the expiration date is what's listed on the license. So this would make it compliant with what we're doing. So we would strike that. Again, the next page, needing to display the license, removing his or her, just saying that they just need to keep, display the license. Again, the business doesn't have a gender. And then that would be the first little section there. So anyway, kind of going through little pieces that way. I don't know if you have other ones. The next one is one will fit to striking quite a bit out because it matches the state code. So any questions on the first little changes to that?
You may have said already, is there a time frame from the submittal of the business license until we have to issue that? What have we given
I don't know
ourselves?
that there's a submittal time frame that says that it's as soon as administratively feasible. We want to issue that as soon as it's gone through all the different processes.
Right, that's,
Typically only takes about 4 days,
okay.
so it
So
really
I-
Hasn't been very long.
So we send out a building inspector, fire, the fire chief and a few of those, and I just wanna make sure we're given adequate time whenever
Police
it's
department
submitted.
first and the building inspector.
Are we including the fire department or the fire chief in that?
Certain ones are required for fire, yes.
Okay,
And Dean inspects for fire, but with being the building inspector as
Gotcha.
well, so that'll be part of his ad as well.
okay, perfect.
Good question. So let's take alcohol beverages. So at this point,
Sorry, I know I'm late here. Just a quick thought. In 5.04.060, the refund of fee, it says, and this is maybe just clerical, I hate to bring these kinds of things up,
that's
but
fine.
unless otherwise provided herein, no business license fee is refundable for any reason whatsoever once the license has been issued. If a license be denied, the applicant shall be entitled to refund of the amount paid in excess of the amount set by resolution by City Council, which shall be retained to offset application processing costs.
Is that in our fee
I-
Do
schedule?
we have it in our fee schedule? Do we have an amount that they aren't refunded? Do we have that?
I'm
It
not-
can be established in our fee schedule. I don't think we
It's
have.
on fee schedule.
I don't think we're holding any of the feedback, are we?
I feel like we ought to at least, well, and I don't know, maybe customer service wise, we ought to just call it a loss, but as far as, you know, I work in government and we make sure that we make the money that we've put into, you know, so if there's, paperwork that was done and staff time required to do something, it seemed like, you know, it's a good idea to make sure that we're at least getting compensated for that time that was put in. But maybe not. I don't know how to.
At this point, what we would do there is we would set what that amount might be, what we would expect an amount to be in the rate resolution.
Okay.
We could do that. We could add it at this point. At this point, it's allowing for us to hold some back, but as far as we're aware, in the rate resolution, it doesn't have any amount in there, so that we're not holding any back. We're giving the full refund. If we deny it, we're giving the refund back.
Okay.
Saying, we denied your application, here's your money back.
Yeah, and there's two ways to look at it. I just, myself, I see, I guess I've been kind of conditioned by the federal government for a little too long.
Well, at that point, much work has gone into it if it's approved as if it's denied, so,
Yeah.
Right.
in reality, some should be held back, I agree.
Yeah, but at the same time, customer service is important, so.
And some of the business license, on that same point, some of the business licenses for things that we will do, like sweeping, fire or for police protection. Some of those individual pieces, we don't necessarily break it out individually on the invoice, but there are pieces to that business license. We could look to see what the amount was that we have established for.
Well, typically the renewal, it's broke out, so the renewal is $50 for the application fee. So it would be reasonable to say, well, $50 of the $100 application fee is not refundable. Another 50 would be, because then we add for the renewal at that point, because of the year of service we've provided is sweeper route, police protection, lighting, if it's in a district that's lighted, things like that. So that would be reasonable.
So we could come back and we could propose a $50 something like that back in the resolution. This would say, do you want there to be a chance to charge something or not? Because if you don't, let's just take it out. If we're not gonna ever charge anything, let's just take it out of here. If there is a possibility of charging something, let's leave it in
Okay.
and
Put it
address
on
the
the
rate
fee.
resolution
Yeah.
if we want to at that point. But going through these codes, it's nice for you to then say, okay, I put that in the back of my mind. Hey, if it comes up and I say, yeah, I really do want to see that, then we can say, okay, when we bring up the rate resolution each year, we talk about it, and that when you say, hey, add that one in. But you may not have known that that was an option until we've gone through some of the code. And so it's always nice to review code as we go.
If we reject it, I would personally not want to charge any. It's not going to be a big amount one way or another, but the personal being rejected is probably
Right.
enough insult for one.
Right, I'm with you, and
but
that's why I wanted to
I understand what
hear.
you're saying, but
Yeah.
that's how I would feel.
I'm with you.
At this point, we're not charging anything.
So,
Okay.
This probably
but
not
it's a
a
good question.
It is an option.
not a common occurrence for a business license to be denied either, is it?
No, we haven't had many.
So
No, I like the idea of refunding the whole amount myself. I feel like, but I just wanted to bring it up as a
That's
possibility.
very observant, I'd say. That's a good question.
Question. Appreciate that. All right. Let's just look at the next one, if we can. So, first of all, on this one, just starting in 50810, the title in 1990 was Title 32A. In 2000, what was that? 2007? I think it was 7 or 11. I'm not sure. Anyway, it has been, we'll say at least 6 years, but probably longer than that, since this title no longer existed. It was repealed, at least by 11. It was repealed and replaced with Title 32B. So at that point, we haven't come back at points and refreshed these titles. And that's one thing that is a disadvantage when we reference a state code inside of our title, is if that state code updates and they update a title, we may not be updating hours. We've tried and we've gone through some of that process to do a lot of the other ones. But as we go in deep dive on some of these, we're gonna find more of them.
Can you be as generic as to say just matches state code and not reference
We could
the?
say that it matches the Utah Alcoholic Beverage Act, because they've named it the same throughout those. We could simply take off the title and call it the Utah Alcoholic Beverage Control Act is adopted in its entirety to be enforced in conjunction with. So leave that one, but take off the title.
Ryan, do we have anything in this code or any of the other codes where we're citing state code that's more restrictive than the state code? Because if not, I mean, I'm very sensitive to the work that goes into this.
Yep.
If it's state code we're regurgitating and we just need to update the times and dates, just tell us, let's cut the chase and get through it.
So I say we, okay, let me cut to the chase.
I mean,
I say we remove 20 in its entirety, 30 in its entirety. Leave 50 because that is in addition to state code. Leave 40 because it's in addition to state code. 50 is in addition to state code, but we would strike out the actual numbers that the license is because that's in the resolution. Strike 60 altogether because it's a reiteration of state code. 70, strike altogether. 80 allows us to charge a fee inside the city. That's in addition to the state fee. They have to apply to the state. They apply to the city. Keep 90, but remove everything except for the first sentence. So it still goes to the police chief. Then renewals. Reference that from the recorder to the treasurer, because the rest of the business license stuff is going through the treasurer's office, not through the recorder's office. Strike 110, strike 120, keep 130, but change it to Tri-County Health instead of the Uinta Basin District Department of Health, because they don't exist anymore. Strike 140, strike 150, strike 160, strike 170, strike 180, strike 190, strike 200, 210, 220, 230, 240, and remove all of those. And then we would have the state code and only what we choose.
great job.
Nice.
You wanted to skip to the chase.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
So if I can get the second one, I would strike the amusement centers altogether. It's covered in state code. Keep the television if you like it. But the problem with the television one is that at this point we do it through contract, through, what do we call this contract?
Utility,
Yeah, it's a utility contract, so.
yeah.
What is it?
Franchise agreement.
Franchise, thank you. So we use it through a franchise agreement anyway, so at this point, this code is really irrelevant because it would, if it varies and doesn't keep current
Match
with
the
the
agreement,
contract,
then
then we're in a problem. So I'm fine, tossing that one because we have that through, contract instead of through code, so.
One of the things back, and this is probably all taken care of, we discussed previously about restrictions on sale of alcohol in the city not matching neighboring cities.
Right.
Whatever we struck from our code,
Strikes it 'cause it leads
then-
back to the state code.
but then the state code allows the municipalities to determine off-site beer sale, off-site consumptive beer sales. Do you have to specify anything
We don't
about?
have to specify unless we want more restrictive than the state.
Okay,
We can, and we did, but if we don't want to,
right.
we can
But
go back to.
it eliminates that problem without us having to say anything more, correct? Okay.
Correct. Yep,
Yeah.
that section gets deleted, we revert to state code and stay at state code, so, yes. So amusement centers, I would say delete the cable television, I would say, to delete the section because we contract anyway, so it's irrelevant. Charitable solicitation, this is a summary. This section here in our code is a summary of Utah Code Title 13, Chapter 22. I would delete this out of our code. And that takes me to page 16, and that's what I'd asked to present. So, if you're good with those, we can either proceed on those, or we can go through the next 15 pages at another meeting and go through the same kind of thing, or we can do it a different way. I'm happy to do it however you direct me to.
I appreciate what you've done so far. I think it's, I think it needs to be done. There's a lot of old stuff in there. I think we hope that the next 15 pages for the next meeting. But do we have a, do we have a,
Wisdom is speaking already.
do we have a motion to approve what has been presented so far?
So moved.
We have a motion by Aaron Wake to approve up to page
16.
16 in the resolution, and seconded by Joe Burdick. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. One thing of note, it says up on the screen, training by city attorney. He is under the weather at this point. He has the flu, so he's not here tonight, so we'll scratch that from the agenda item, from the agenda tonight. Now, no. He
Only
said
after 15 minutes. Only after 16 pages.
40 minutes for the training, but on the agenda it's 20. And so,
You didn't make 40?
I'm just kidding. We'll turn the time over to you.
26. It's 26. We found a shorter one for you guys.
Carolyn.
For you guys.
Great.
The other one was 40 minutes.
Yeah.
We found a shorter one. Carolyn was great.
I think David Church can say it a lot better than I, or at least you'll like to do it a lot better than if I do it, so.
Before we go, does anyone else need a break? I do.
Should we break?
Let's have a couple-minute recess.
That's a
Good call. Didn't want to show my age, so.
We could sing I'm a Little Snowman or something like that.
Go ahead.
We'll watch.
Oh, no.
I don't think I'm a little snowman. Once I was a snowman.
Once I was a snowman.